sun begins to set over the historic town of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, casting long and ominous shadows across Lincoln Square. This location was once the violent epicenter of the American Civil War, where the bloodiest battle on North American soil took place. Standing proudly, yet forebodingly, in the center of this town is the Gettysburg Hotel. It is a structure that has witnessed centuries of history and tragedy. Since it was first established in the year 1797, the air here feels heavy with the weight of the past, and many visitors report a sudden drop in temperature as they approach the main entrance. The bustling sounds of modern life seem to fade away the closer one gets to the red brick facade, leaving only an eerie silence that chills the bone. Originally known as the Tavern of Scott, the building was constructed to serve travelers moving west across the young nation. It was a place of rest and comfort for weary souls seeking a warm meal and a soft bed. However, the cheerful atmosphere of the early 19th century would not last forever, as the clouds of war gathered on the horizon. By the summer of 1863, the tavern had evolved into a prominent hotel, hosting politicians and generals alike. The walls of this establishment absorbed the anxious whispers of men who knew that a great conflict was inevitable. It stood as a silent observer as the town of Gettysburg unknowingly prepared for a collision that would forever scar the landscape and the souls of those who lived there. On the first day of July in 1863, the war finally arrived on the doorstep of the Gettysburg Hotel. The peaceful streets were instantly transformed into a chaotic war zone as Union and Confederate forces clashed with ferocious intensity. The deafening roar of cannon fire and the sharp crack of muskets shattered the windows and shook the very foundation of the building. Smoke from black powder filled the air, choking the residents and obscuring the sun until day turned into an artificial night. Panic swept through the hotel as guests and staff scrambled for safety, realizing that their sanctuary had become a target. The ground outside began to turn a deep crimson as the first casualties fell on the cobblestone streets. As the battle raged on for 3 agonizing days, the Gettysburg Hotel ceased to be a place of luxury and was hurriedly converted into a makeshift field hospital. The elegant dining rooms and spacious halls were stripped of their finery to make room for the endless stream of wounded soldiers. Blood-soaked stretchers were carried in by the dozens bearing men with horrific injuries that defied description. The screams of the dying echoed through the corridors, replacing the polite conversation and laughter that once filled the air. Surgeons worked tirelessly with limited supplies, amputating shattered limbs by the light of flickering oil lamps, while the pile of severed arms and legs grew outside the windows. Among the chaos of the field hospital, there was a dedicated nurse named Rachel, who worked tirelessly to comfort the suffering men. She was not a soldier, but her bravery matched that of any man on the battlefield. As she moved from patient to patient, Rachel provided water and bandages to the Union soldiers who were brought into the hotel, often holding their hands as they took their final breaths. Her presence was a beacon of hope in a place consumed by death and despair. Legend says she possessed a kindness that transcended the brutality of the war, making her beloved by those she tended to. However, the war does not discriminate between soldier and civilian, and tragedy was destined to find her within these walls. The exact circumstances of the death of Rachel remain a subject of debate among historians and paranormal investigators alike. Some accounts suggest she was struck by a stray bullet that smashed through a window while she was tending to a wounded officer. Others believe she succumbed to exhaustion and disease after days of exposure to the infection rampant in the hospital. Regardless of how she died, her spirit seems unable to leave the place where she gave her life in service to others. She is bound to the Gettysburg Hotel by a sense of duty that extends beyond the grave. Her presence is one of the most frequently reported supernatural phenomena in the building, suggesting she still has rounds to make. Guests staying in the rooms on the third floor often report encounters with a female entity who fits the description of Rachel. They describe seeing a translucent figure moving silently through the room, appearing to carry a bundle of bandages or a pitcher of water. She is often seen opening drawers and rearranging personal items, as if she is searching for medical supplies that are no longer there. The sightings are rarely malicious, but they are profoundly unsettling to those who wake in the middle of the night to find her standing at the foot of their bed. Her eyes are often described as sad and distant, looking past the living observers toward a time long gone. One particular account involves a couple who were staying in the hotel for a weekend getaway, exploring the history of the town. Upon returning to their room after dinner, they found their suitcases unpacked and their clothing neatly folded on the bed. Assuming a maid had entered, they called the front desk to inquire, only to be told that no staff had been in their room. Later that night, the wife awoke to feel a cold hand gently brushing her forehead, similar to how a nurse checks a patient for fever. She opened her eyes to see a woman in a long period dress, fading into the wall, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender and old antiseptic. The haunting of the Gettysburg Hotel is not limited to the spirit of Rachel, as many soldiers also linger in the shadows. One of the most prominent spirits is that of a Union soldier named James Culbertson of the Pennsylvania Reserves. James was critically wounded during the fighting near the wheat field and was brought to the hotel for treatment. Despite the best efforts of the surgeons, his injuries were too severe, and he passed away in one of the upper rooms. Unlike Rachel, who seems stuck in a loop of service James, appears to be a more active and sometimes agitated spirit. He is known to wander the hallways, seeking the comrades he lost on the battlefield. Witnesses have described encountering a man wearing a ragged blue uniform with a dark stain spreading across his chest. He often appears solid for a fleeting moment before dissolving into a mist when approached by the living. Housekeeping staff have reported hearing heavy footsteps pacing the corridors when the hotel is nearly empty. Some have even heard a raspy voice asking for water or inquiring about the position of the Confederate troops. It is as if James is trapped in the final moments of his life, unaware that the war ended over a century and a half ago. His energy is heavy and sorrowful, causing a wave of depression to wash over anyone he passes. The grand ballroom of the Gettysburg Hotel was once the center of social life in the town, hosting galas and dances for the elite. During the war, it served as a triage center where the most critical cases were assessed and treated. Today, the ballroom is a hotspot for spectral activity, particularly late at night when the room is silent. Security guards patrolling the building have reported hearing the faint strains of waltz music coming from the empty hall. When they enter the room, the music stops abruptly, leaving only a cold silence. Some have even claimed to see shadow figures dancing in the darkness, twirling to a melody that only they can hear. A chilling encounter in the ballroom occurred when a night manager was locking up the facility after a wedding reception. As he turned off the main lights, he saw the reflection of a man in the mirror behind the bar. The man was dressed in a Civil War officer uniform and was staring intently at the manager with piercing blue eyes. When the manager turned around to face the intruder, the room was completely empty. However, the air in the room had turned freezing cold, and the distinct smell of cigar smoke filled the space. The manager fled the room and refused to enter the ballroom alone at night for the remainder of his employment. Below the main floors of the hotel lies the basement, which served as a morgue during the height of the battle. The cool temperatures of the underground space made it the only suitable place to store the bodies of the dead before they could be buried. It is here that the energy of the Gettysburg Hotel takes a darker and more menacing turn. Visitors who venture near the basement often report feelings of nausea and intense anxiety. The air feels thick and oppressive, as if the sheer number of souls that passed through there has left a permanent stain on the atmosphere. It is a place where the barrier between the living and the dead feels dangerously thin. Paranormal investigators who have conducted sessions in the basement have captured compelling electronic voice phenomena. The recordings often contain whispers of men pleading for help or crying out for their mothers in the darkness. In one famous recording, a voice can clearly be heard saying the words tell them, "I am cold." The The suffering that occurred in this subterranean space was immense, and it seems to have imprinted itself into the stone foundation. Shadows are seen darting between the support pillars, and some have reported being touched or pushed by unseen hands. It is a location that demands respect and caution from those who dare to enter. There is a specific room in the hotel, often cited as being the most haunted guest room in the entire establishment. Guests staying in this room have reported waking up to find the television turning on and off by itself, displaying only static. Others have claimed that the bathroom faucet turns on full blast in the middle of the night, flooding the sink before stopping on its own. The activity in this room seems to be mischievous, almost poltergeist in nature. Some believe it is the spirit of a young drummer boy who died in the hotel and now plays pranks on the living to pass the eternal time. His playful energy contrasts sharply with the somber mood of the other spirits. The skepticism of non-believers is often challenged within the walls of the Gettysburg Hotel. Many who arrive thinking the ghost stories are merely marketing ploys leave with a very different perspective. A common occurrence for skeptics is the rapid draining of batteries in cameras and phones. Fully charged devices will die within minutes of entering certain rooms, only to regain full power once the guest leaves the hotel. This phenomenon is believed to be caused by spirits drawing energy from the electronics to manifest themselves. It is a subtle but undeniable sign that something unseen is present and aware of the living. The auditory hallucinations experienced by guests are among the most terrifying aspects of the haunting. It is not uncommon for people to hear the distinct sound of a cannon firing in the distance, even when no reenactments are taking place. The sound is low and thunderous, vibrating the floorboards and rattling the window panes. Others hear the phantom sound of horses galloping on the pavement outside, accompanied by the shouting of orders. These residual hauntings are like a recording of history, playing over and over again. The intensity of the battle was so great that it seems to have scarred the very air around the hotel. One guest reported a terrifying nightmare that felt more like a vision while staying on the second floor. In the dream, he was lying on a cot in the middle of the room, unable to move his legs. He looked down to see that his uniform was torn and bloodied, and a doctor with a grim expression was standing over him, holding a bone saw. The pain was excruciatingly real, until he woke up screaming in a pool of sweat. He later learned that his room was located in the exact spot where the main operating theater had been set up during the battle. The residual trauma of the amputation took hold of his subconscious mind. The presence of General Robert Edward Lee is sometimes associated with the town, but it is the Union commanders who haunt the hotel. Officers use the hotel as a meeting point to discuss strategy and logistics before and after the battle. It is said that in the quiet hours of the morning, the low murmur of men arguing over maps can be heard in the conference rooms. The clinking of glasses and the scraping of heavy chairs against the floor suggest that the War Council is still in session. These spirits seem locked in a perpetual state of planning, preparing for a battle that has already been fought and won. The physical structure of the Gettysburg Hotel has undergone many renovations over the decades, but the original foundations remain. In 1955, a massive fire destroyed much of the building, but it was rebuilt on the same historic footprint. Construction workers, during the rebuilding process, reported strange accidents and tools vanishing into thin air. It is believed that the disturbance of the site stirred up the spirits who had settled into the ruins. Every time a wall is opened or a floorboard is replaced, the paranormal activity seems to spike. The spirits do not appreciate their eternal resting place being disturbed by modern machinery. The exterior of the hotel facing Lincoln Square is also a focal point for supernatural sightings. Late at night, people walking through the square have looked up to see figures standing in the windows of the dark hotel. These figures are often described as wearing Civil War-era clothing and looking down at the street with a mixture of confusion and sadness. When the observer blinks or looks away, the figure vanishes, leaving only an empty window pane reflecting the moonlight. It serves as a grim reminder that the hotel is a cage for souls who cannot move on from the tragedy they witnessed. The elevator in the modern hotel is another source of fear for many guests and staff members. It is known to move between floors on its own, often opening its doors to reveal an empty hallway. Some guests have reported getting into the elevator on the ground floor, only to be taken to the basement against their will. When the doors open to the dark storage area, they feel an overwhelming sense of dread and refuse to step out. The elevator seems to be controlled by an invisible hand that wants to guide the living into the darkest parts of the building. The connection between the Gettysburg Hotel and the speech of President Abraham Lincoln adds another layer of history. Lincoln stayed in a home adjacent to the hotel the night before delivering the Gettysburg Address. The crowds that gathered in the square to see the president were massive and filled with a mix of hope and mourning. Some say that the energy of that crowd is still palpable on the anniversary of the address. The hotel stands as a silent witness to one of the most important moments in American history. This convergence of death and historical significance creates a unique spiritual vortex. Paranormal experts believe that the limestone rock, which lies beneath much of Gettysburg, acts as a battery for spiritual energy. This geological feature, combined with the quartz in the stone, is thought to record the emotional imprint of the battle. The Gettysburg Hotel sits directly on top of this conductive ground, amplifying the hauntings within. The sheer volume of blood spilled into the earth has charged the land with a dark resonance that cannot be washed away. This theory explains why the activity is so consistent and intense compared to other haunted locations. For the staff of the Gettysburg Hotel, dealing with the spirits is simply part of the job description. Housekeepers have developed a routine of announcing themselves before entering a room to avoid startling any entities. Front desk agents are trained to handle complaints about noise from empty rooms with a polite understanding. They know that the hotel belongs to the spirits just as much as it belongs to the owners. There is a mutual respect that has developed over the years, a truce between the living and the dead. However, this truce is fragile and can be broken at any moment. One horrifying account involves a security guard who was investigating a noise on the 4th floor. As he walked down the narrow hallway, the lights began to flicker violently and the temperature plummeted. Suddenly, he felt a pair of hands grab his ankles and pull him to the ground with incredible force. He was dragged several feet across the carpet before he managed to kick free and scramble to the stairwell. When he examined his ankles later, he found distinct bruises in the shape of fingers. He resigned the next day, refusing to ever step foot in the hotel again. The lingering dread that visitors feel is not just about seeing a ghost, but about feeling the immense sorrow of the place. The Gettysburg Hotel is a monument to the suffering of young men who died far from home. Their fear and pain were absorbed by the wood and stone, creating an atmosphere that is permanently heavy. Sensitive individuals often leave the hotel feeling physically drained and emotionally exhausted. It is as if the spirits are reaching out to the living, trying to share the burden of their trauma. The weight of history here is a physical force. There are those who claim that the spirits are not trapped, but choose to stay because they are waiting for something. Perhaps they are waiting for orders that will never come, or for a loved one to take them home. The soldier James acts as a sentinel, eternally guarding the site of his death. Rachel continues her rounds, unable to rest, while there is still phantom pain to be soothed. They are suspended in a moment of time that repeats endlessly without resolution. This lack of closure is what fuels the haunting and keeps the energy active. As you walk the halls of the Gettysburg Hotel, you are walking through layers of time. The modern carpet and wallpaper cannot hide the blood-stained floorboards of the past. Every creak of the floor and every draft of cold air is a reminder of what happened here in 1863. The past is not dead here. It is alive and watching from the shadows. The separation between then and now is an illusion that the hotel strips away. You are sharing the space with those who breathed their last breath in these rooms. Leaving the hotel does not always mean leaving the experience behind. As some visitors claim, the spirits follow them. a phenomenon known as the attachment can occur where a spirit latches onto a living person. Visitors have reported strange occurrences in their own homes after staying at the Gettysburg Hotel. Objects moving cold spots and nightmares can plague them for weeks after their trip. It serves as a warning that engaging with the paranormal can have lasting consequences. The dead do not always respect the boundaries of the living. The Gettysburg Hotel remains one of the most haunted locations in the United States, a beacon for those seeking the unknown. It stands as a testament to the brutality of the Civil War and the enduring nature of the human spirit. Whether you are a believer or a skeptic, the atmosphere of the hotel forces you to confront the reality of the past. It is a place where history is not just read in books, but felt in the very air you breathe. The spirits of the soldiers and the nurse are a permanent part of the legacy. As night settles once again over Lincoln Square, the windows of the Gettysburg Hotel begin to glow with a pale light. The tourists retreat to their beds, unaware of the eyes watching them from the corners of the room. The sounds of the modern world fade away, replaced by the phantom echoes of 1863. The stage is set for another night of encounters between the living and the dead. In the darkness, the hotel remembers everything. The story of the Gettysburg Hotel is far from over as new reports of paranormal activity emerge every year. Each new guest brings a fresh energy that stirs the dormant spirits into action. The cycle of haunting continues, fueled by the endless curiosity of the living. It is a grim dance that has lasted for over a century and shows no signs of stopping. The hotel waits patiently for the next soul to enter its doors. If you ever find yourself walking through the doors of this historic building, remember to show respect to those who came before. You are walking on hallowed ground, soaked in the blood of patriots, and visited by the specters of the past. Listen closely to the silence, and you may hear the whispers of Rachel or the heavy footsteps of James. Keep your eyes open for the shadows that move against the wall, and never assume that you are truly alone in the room. The final thought that lingers with every visitor is the realization that death is not the end at the Gettysburg Hotel. The spirits here are trapped in a purgatory of their own making, bound by duty, trauma, and unfinished business. They serve as a chilling reminder that some events are too tragic for the universe to forget. As you leave the square and look back at the red brick building, you can feel their gaze upon you. The Civil War spirits haunt these historic rooms, and they are waiting for you.